Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Good Advice Podcast. You've come to the right place to learn how to do business better. I'm your host, Blake, and I appreciate you tuning into the podcast today. I love our little show because we like to talk about the things that are actually working in the business world. And today we got an interesting story hit the national news about homegrown Arkansas and someone who had to resign because of their use of AI. With AI everywhere, I'm excited to talk about this today, but before we dive in, hey, we got a quick word from one of the amazing businesses that sponsored today's episode. Check out this quick ad, and we'll be back soon. There's one single piece of advice that I give to business owners who are ready to scale their business drastically, and that's knowing exactly what you need to hand off so that you can continue focusing on what you're an expert in. It amazes me when I talk to business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping and tax prep, and worse, that they're going through all this paperwork at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, even midnight, slaving away trying to make sense of all of the numbers for their business. Business owners who are making it happen have already figured out that you can't do it all yourself. That's why I recommend Steve Lay with Equity Business Solutions. Not only is he an expert in bookkeeping and tax prep, but what I love about Steve is that he'll sit down with you and help you make sense of the value of your business beyond just reading a spreadsheet. You'll be able to make better decisions, and more importantly, you're going to save yourself the crucial time you would have spent going through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that keeps us up late at night. So save yourself some time and some money by giving Steve Lay a call at Equity Business Solutions, and he'll show you the value beyond your numbers. Go to equitybusinesssolutionsllc.com to find out more. All right, it's been a couple of weeks, so it's time for our bi-monthly episode on AI. You know, AI continues to grow, continues to be more mainstream, and even saying that is underserving it. I mean, everyone is using AI, everyone's using ChatGPT, everyone's using whatever versions they have of it, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down. In fact, there's so much discussion and chatter about, the politics of AI. There was some news stories about areas that this is not usual in Northwest Arkansas, but when I lived in Houston, for example, you could do a power bill, an electricity bill, or contract, what have you, that was effectively like a variable plan. And as people in the community used more energy, your bill would go up, and as they used less, your bill would go down. Well, in the discussion lately has been a particular community where the AI warehouse, I guess, or property basically got lumped into that community use, and so residents saw their bills become just astronomical because of it. So it's not just a tech conversation. This is becoming very much like a political conversation and a regulation conversation. I'll probably do an episode on this maybe in the next couple of weeks, or maybe I'll just let it be as it is. But even yesterday, there was a news story about people trying to convince Spotify to label their AI music. In fact, we had an amazing guest on the show last year about AI artists and how Spotify does not label their music as AI. In fact, Spotify will just, if you're creating playlists or having it recommend music to you, Spotify will just lump in AI-generated music without you knowing, and it should not be any wonder as to why this is done. If there is no one actually creating the music, you don't have to pay a royalty to it, and you get all the benefits of keeping someone on your platform. None of that is intended to sound, kooky or, what's the word I'm thinking of? Conspiracy theorist, I guess. It's just the simple dollars and cents as to why businesses would be motivated to do something like this. But I am one of the, annoying people who, old man screams at clouds, who's like, we got to slow down on this thing. What are we doing? Like, this thing is continuously getting more and more realistic. It's getting more and more or I should say more difficult to detect when it is fake. And I think that you are living on another planet if you have only positive aspirations or, assume that people have largely positive intentions with this kind of technology. I mean, it is just, it's simply dangerous how it can be used. And there's going to be a running theme. It's going to be a running theme on the show. We're going to talk about it. It affects business so much. And in fact, today we're going to talk about it because in the news this last week was a headline out of Little Rock, Arkansas. It reads, Arkansas attorney resigns after using AI to assist in casework. The Arkansas Supreme Court announced that this particular attorney, I'm not going to name her only because the purpose of today's episode is not to blast this person or embarrass this person. I mean, I'm certain she has absolutely endured enough shame about this. But the Arkansas Supreme Court announced that this particular attorney has resigned after she filed a pleading with the court that was created using artificial intelligence. And then down in the actual text, just this last December, so just almost 2 months ago, the court issued a show cause order for this individual to respond to concerns of AI use. During a review of the material, it was determined that parts of her response contained citations to cases that could not be located. She admitted to using Microsoft Office Copilot for assistance and said she specifically answered questions like, can you provide case law to support this argument with citations from Arkansas Dependency Neglect Law? And can you provide statuses in case law that state this with citations? This person would go on to say that she regrets the decision, so on and so forth, as you could expect. So I think what's really interesting about this story is the number of times I have heard professionals, like it astonishes me, the number of times I've heard professionals talk about using AI for something that should be their expertise. Like, it stuns me the amount of times people, and I think nowadays it almost feels like the awkward joke people make to get laughs. But I was at an event and someone was speaking, and I think I mentioned this story actually somewhat recently. This person was speaking and how they were a consultant or what have you, and they were working with one of their customers, and the customer had a problem, and they said something like, so, I did what everyone else would do. I went to ChatGPT and said, how should I respond to this person? And this person was presenting on stage, and I literally couldn't believe it. I mean, I was like, I literally can't believe you just said that on stage, that you, in your profession, who you do this professionally, that you just declared that you went to ChatGPT to know what to say. And this isn't really to toot my own horn or to, sound like an expert in any way. I mean, I'm learning just like anyone else, but I have literally never in my life, ever even thought to go to ChatGPT for a question related to my consulting work. When someone asks me about what to do in their business, what to do with their pricing, what to do with the customer, what to do with a difficult employee, I have never, ever gone to ChatGPT. And that's not meant to sound like a badge of honor. I've never felt like I needed to. And the reason for that is because I have spent literally a decade plus working in this field, in working with people. I have a lot of experience to pull on and examples and not just examples of other businesses, but mistakes that I've made, maybe times where I was too harsh with an employee or a time that I wasn't a good enough boss. Like, I have so many rich examples that I can pull on that I've just never thought I needed to go to ChatGPT. So it amazes me then how often I hear people admit this and say, "Oh yeah, I asked ChatGPT." In fact, we were hosting our Tuesday morning meeting, and I feel like sometimes my podcast, by the way, is just like the grandpa who just like tells the same three stories. Because I'm pretty sure I told this story recently also. But I was hosting our Tuesday morning meeting, and we had an attorney who was there, and someone made a comment about, I think we were talking about like happy customers or unhappy customers, and customers who asked for their money back or something like that, or I can't remember the exact context, but someone spoke up and said something to the effect of, "Oh, well, I had ChatGPT write my contract for me, so I'm good." And then the attorney spoke up and said, "Well, hang on. You know that that's not good enough, right? Like, that ChatGPT wrote it for me. Like, that's not going to actually, I mean, it might cover you, but that's probably not going to cover you, right? Like, that will not hold up in a court of law." So it's just funny to me. It's funny to me, people who are so open and transparent. So I'll say two things here, because if you listen to the show long term, hopefully, like I do try to be a bit humble. I don't want to come across as like knowing every answer. So, I have plenty of flaws. I make plenty of mistakes, and I have given plenty of instances of bad advice. I think about a friend of mine who several years ago, she was starting a home organizing business. This was like the days before Marie Kondo and like what brings you joy and all that stuff. But she was starting a home organizing business, and maybe this was 10 years ago. And I said, that's never going to go anywhere. It's never going to happen. Like, that's a silly idea. Yeah, bad advice. Because not only is this a legitimate business, but she would go on to grow, almost $300,000-$400,000 annual revenue business doing exactly this kind of thing. So, I mean, look, what did I know, right? So I do try to be humble. I do try to own where I make mistakes, but I'm gonna charge you with something today to really think about and process and evaluate. If you're going to charge money for a service, you have an obligation to the people who buy from you to be the expert in your field. You have an obligation to be the person who knows the answer. Now, let's say you're newer to the industry, you're newer to business, you don't quite know what you're doing, you're not quite sure. You have no business charging a premium on something you have no experience in, but you certainly should be committed and passionate about learning and growing and becoming better in your craft. There was a point sometime around like maybe year 2 or year 3 when I had first started Good Advice, where it really possessed me, this idea of, I have to get better at this. I have to get better at this. And it wasn't even out of like, I owe it to my customers. It wasn't even out of like, I wasn't thinking of like a certain customer who had paid me money who I feel like didn't get like their money's worth. It was purely out of like, I have to be the guy, not for my own ego, but like if someone's going to call me and look for help, I have to know what I'm talking about. And for me, it really was like almost like a moral thing. It was like, I got to know my stuff. I got to know what I'm doing. I got to know what I'm talking about. And if I don't, I have to get better. That's simply all there is to it. I have to get better. I have to learn. I have to grow. And the way that process kind of worked out for me, I self-taught a lot, watched a lot of YouTube late at night from people that the way they did business made sense to me. I've talked on the podcast before about consuming tons of content from Chris Do, who's just an awesome sales guy. I read a lot. There's a great writer named Todd Capone who's been on the podcast before. Read a lot, studied a lot. And then I did two things. I started working with as many people as I could, even if they weren't necessarily the right kind of customer. And two, I began offering advice, a lot of advice on social media platforms. and just, someone saying like, I have this problem, I'm trying to figure this out. And I started just, sharing things that made sense to me. I started meeting with people, kind of understanding their business better. And, this isn't like a revolutionary concept, but I was very much possessed about getting better at what it is that I was selling at the time. So because of that, I'm horrified at how often people are using things like ChatGPT. I'm horrified by it. It just blows my mind. It really blows my mind. It surprises me how comfortable people are with saying that they're really just using ChatGPT. Because if you think about it, like what really separates you from a competitor then? I mean, you both have the ability. I mean, there might be a bit of a technical barrier there. Maybe someone who doesn't know how to navigate ChatGPT yet, but that's going to be less of a commonality. As time goes on, more people are going to understand how to. I mean, literally, you can flip open your phone and go to, chatgpt.com and enter your query immediately. So the insight, the special edge that you think you're getting by being able to ask AI is really a disservice. It's really not giving you the edge that you think it is. But more importantly, my encouragement is, we have to really be possessed about being better, learning, growing, and it's a journey. It's a journey. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and be the expert. But I think there's something to admire about people who've been in a field for 30 or 40 years and who have deep, rich experience. When I was coming out of school, I mean, there were a lot of statistics around how millennials would have 7 different jobs by the time they were 30. And I think the number's even higher for Gen Z. Now, there's been so much generational critiquing around, well, there's the problem with people these days. They don't stick with one job and, what have you. I don't ascribe to really any of that nonsense. But I do think there's something to be said about someone who deeply understands an industry and understands their craft and understands their expertise. Now, and hear me out. Let me kind of balance this a little bit. I'm not saying that for certain things you shouldn't use ChatGPT, shouldn't use AI. We were fixing something on a Shopify page, and it was an old theme, and where we would typically go wasn't there because Shopify had changed the UI. And so we went to ChatGPT and said, "Hey, where is this? Like, we can't find this block of code. We know it's typically here. Where is it?" And then ChatGPT, which we don't even use ChatGPT anymore. We use Perplexity. But ChatGPT was basically like, "Oh yeah, it actually used to be over here. This is where it used to be. Was in this spot." So, not to say that there isn't functionality, there isn't like quality of life. I'm not saying like, AI bad. You're a bad person if you ever open it up. It's not something horrendous for your business. I'm only saying it can't be the secret sauce. It really can't be the secret sauce for your brand. It can't be the secret sauce for your business. It can't be the thing that is the value proposition for what you do. If you have processes built around it, that's fine. And I think that is getting to some of the value of it is, man, there's some really great quality of life that can come from AI. There are some processes that are really great. I'll give a quick example. And again, I think I've given this example before. We parse through so much data in my business from like a marketing perspective. We're looking at so much data. We're looking at, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that knocking. My child is banging on the window. One second. All right. My kids were outside banging on the window. And despite my best attempts to ignore the sounds, they thought, "What do you do when dad doesn't come to the window? You bang harder." So anyway, one of the amazing joys of being able to work from home is I get to see my wonderful, amazing kids every day. So I love it. But anyway, getting back to my point, AI, building processes around AI, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, whenever we do, here's a really great example. Whenever we do for Podcastable, when we're editing shows, we run the first draft through Auphonic. Auphonic is an AI. Dude, Auphonic's cool, man. Auphonic is a website that existed before ChatGPT was big. I mean, we've been using it since 2018, 2019. It's very good at just normalizing audio, just doing like an immediate first pass. But here's a really good example. So we had a customer where we ran the audio. It was a video podcast. We ran the audio through Auphonic just to get like the first pass done. And then when we put it into, we use DaVinci. Some people use Adobe. When we put it into DaVinci, as we were looking at it, we realized there was like this very slight crackling sound. There was like an almost imperceivable crackling sound. And looking at this whole process, it was like, dude, what's going on here? Like, what is this? And came to realize that there had been, like, in the encoding process, basically there was an issue happening there, and we had to go back and manually edit it. Well, we knew that because we have a very strong appreciation for like audio quality, audio sound. Does it sound right? Does it look right? And if we were just shipping it off to ChatGPT and didn't have that expertise, then our customers would not get the quality product that we want them to get. So point being, we know what to look for. We know what to listen for. Another example would be, I had a team member who something went wrong on a website, and like something got deleted or changed or something. And he said, "Hey, I was trying to figure this out. I asked ChatGPT, and they said go to this option, and it's probably an issue with like these settings." And I was like, that is not what's going on. That's not what's happening. Like, that's absolutely not what's going on. That's just a very simple fix. It's over on this page. Go to it, fix it, what have you. And it all got cleaned up. And that's only because we had the experience to know what was really going on, and to understand that, unfortunately, with AI, it is, I'm just going to say it, AI is very stupid. Like, it is bad stupid, incredibly stupid. We were presenting a data set to a customer about their SEO rankings in their city, and they are a national company, but we were looking at specifically like their local SEO data. But they're a national company, so they have ranking data that's like across the US, across a lot of like major city hubs and what have you. Well, so we asked AI to scrub all of the data, and this is like a very simple CSV sheet, by the way. This is not complicated data. So we asked AI to scrub all of the data that was not this local town. Fam, let me tell you something. This was like solving some kind of quantum mechanics equation or what have you. Like, no matter how many different ways we asked ChatGPT to do this, it could not scrub the data. And again, this is a simple CSV sheet. This was like column A, city, column B, state, column C, like the keyword that they were ranking for, like a very simple sheet. And the only reason we weren't doing this manually is because it was slightly more complicated than I'm making it. It wasn't just like, this one town. There were like some other suburbs that were like near the city that we cared about. But we couldn't filter it by the state because there were other cities in the state that were included that we explicitly didn't want to include. So essentially what we had said was, we said, hey, only scrub this data and only include answers that are these 5 towns, is what we ended up resolving it down to. Now, originally it was like 11, and we were like, okay, this is too difficult for ChatGPT, because it's something like 2,000, 3,000 rows of data. So we scrubbed it down and said, okay, let's just focus on these 5. It could not scrub the data correctly. It kept giving data that had to do with other cities. It struggled with states, like Rhode Island. For whatever reason, ChatGPT just could not understand that Rhode Island was not the state we were looking at. And there's obviously nothing like super technical about this, but like I knew the data. I had looked at the data. I had perused the data. I had already familiarized myself with the data before we asked ChatGPT to do this. So as I was getting some of these outputs, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, this isn't right. I know it's not right because I had seen some of this data already and I'd seen the states and the towns that it was ranking for. And I thought, this isn't right. And I'd also kind of just as like a gut check, I'd kind of just looked at it. And I knew about for this certain area, I knew about how many keywords were ranking for this business already. Long story short, I personally began to really double down and was like, surely I can figure out how to, because another reason I cared about this was from a process standpoint. I wanted to figure this out so that when I handed this off to a team member and they ran into a similar problem, I could tell them, here's how to navigate this. Y'all, I could not figure this out. And after about 2 hours, I just did it myself. I just did it manually, which, funny enough, I could have just done it manually in about 15, 20 minutes anyway. And so the 15, 20-minute task ended up becoming like a 2-hour plus task because no matter how many different ways I asked, and this is the other thing that drove me crazy, was I got to the point where I really wanted to scream at this thing, but it got to the point where I was like, hey, number 37 is Rhode Island. Rhode Island is not Florida. And then I just love, they're so affirmative. ChatGPT is like, you're so right. It's not. Here's the corrected data. And then I gave so many corrections that eventually it started saying, you're right. That's not correct. Here's the corrected data. And then it just stopped giving me any data. It just stopped. It just gave up. So the whole thing was just really frustrating and exhausting. And that's one example, but I just got to tell you, man, it's one of many examples. I have been stunned as to how stupid AI is. I mean, really, it just is. I'm sorry. It just is. It's so dumb. And maybe, those of you guys who are like the AI apologists out there, I hear you, give it time. Give it time. Man, in 1 year, it's going to be insane. It's going to be insane. Just give it time. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? I'll take your word for it. I'll just say right now, for the amount of how much of our economy is being propped up by AI, I'm real nervous for how stupid this stuff is. Seriously. All that to say, the only reason I know these things are stupid is because I have the experience. I'm not an expert. I'm not the all be all, best source for every single thing business related. Not at all. Who I am today is 10 years of many painful mistakes that have educated me. And in 10 years, I'll have made a lot more mistakes that will continue to educate me. So I'm a work in progress like anyone else. But I didn't just pick this up yesterday. So because of that, it's very easy for me to recognize some of these mistakes. And more importantly, when I'm giving advice to someone, when I'm coaching someone, when I'm consulting someone's business, it's very simple to speak from a place of experience. I was talking to a customer. I just met with a customer last week. We're talking about revenue. There's 3 million plus in revenue. We're talking about growth plans. What are we trying to do? What are we attacking next? Not one time did the laptop open up and we go to ChatGPT. Not one time. Again, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm really emphasizing, y'all, we got to know our stuff. Whatever your craft, whatever your expertise, we got to know our stuff. And again, it's I think part of this is also recognizing what you're not good at and owning that and being comfortable with not being the guy for every single thing. Someone who runs a marketing company called me a couple weeks ago and said, "Hey, I'm looking for some help." And I said, "Let's talk about it." And she said, "Man, I'm really having this hard time with this Google Ads account." And immediately I said, "Hang on, you just need to know I am not the guy for Google Ads. I don't know it. I'm really good at spending people's money in it. I've spent a lot of money for other people in it. I don't sell it, and there's a reason I don't sell it. So I said, hey, but so, we can look at it together, and maybe, a blind squirrel, I'll see something that you haven't seen, but you just need to know, like, I don't know. And I didn't have ChatGPT on the other monitor and was like, yeah, I think I know what's going on there. And then I'm like reading off none of that's happening. It's just candid and honest. Hey, you know what? I don't know anything about that. And that's something that I've tried to be true to in my business. I had a consulting customer who was going to buy a building, and he said, hey, should I buy this building? And I said, dude, I have no idea. I have no idea if you should buy that building. I have no idea if that's the right call, the right next call for your business. And he laughed and said back to me, he was like, well, you're like my guy. Like, you're supposed to tell me what to do. And I was like, and I will, and I do, just not that, I wouldn't know the first thing about it. So sometimes I think that's sometimes the better answer to give to people is, I don't know, but hey, I can help you find someone who does know. Own your expertise, own your knowledge, stop going to ChatGPT to help you find every answer. And in the meantime, hone your craft, get better at it. Get better at learning, get better at what you sell, get better at figuring it out, own your mistakes. Again, you're not going to be an expert overnight. There's merit to being in a business for 10 plus years, 20 plus years, 30 plus years. You're forging your path on mistakes, in learning and figuring it out. And along the way, you're trying to do right by all of your customers. Hey, thanks so much for tuning into the podcast today. I hope today was helpful wherever you are in your business. Don't forget, you can always support the podcast on our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. And of course, I so appreciate the businesses who sponsor the podcast as well. And all that to say, that's been today's Good Advice. We'll catch you later. See ya.